Hola mis amigos y bienvenidos de nuevo a otro video. Hoy vamos a hablar sobre los verbos irregulares, o sea, irregular verbs. So far we've been working a lot with verbs and we've been doing a wonderful job, but they've all been regular so far. For this unit, we're finally going to be taking a dive into some verbs that are considered irregular and learning how they work. To start, we're going to be working with AR, irregular verbs. So, verbs are considered irregular if there is a change in the stem when they are conjugated. Remember, the stem is the beginning portion of the verb. It is everything that does not include, right, the infinitive ending. So, something that is uber important to note is that the nosotros and the vosotros forms are completely unaffected by the stem change in the present tense, which is what we're working with now, of course. Okay, so every other tense, or rather every other subject pronoun will have a stem change, but nosotros and vosotros never ever will. Okay, so let's hop right into it. For AR verbs, there are only two possible changes that occur in the stem. Those are either E to IE stem changes or they are O to UE stem changes. Now, we get pretty lucky here because for our endings, they stay the exact same. Nothing changes, actually. So, as long as you are comfortable with the O, as, a, amos, ais, an endings, then you will be in great condition. All right, so looking at our very first verb here, it is, again, an E to IE stem change. And it is this new verb that we have, empezar, which means to begin or to start. Now you'll notice here, I went ahead and put in bold the letter E that's in the middle of the verb, and this is where we're going to see our stem change. I kept that bold font throughout the chart, that way you're able to quickly see where that change occurs, right? So here we have yo empiezo. Now, remember, we still take off the infinitive ending and we plug in the new ending that matches the subject pronoun, right? So, o matches yo. However, we had to add in that stem change of that E to IE, right? Okay, so same thing's happening for the tu form. We still take that E and we make it MPA, and then we plug in the new ending, which is AS. So, tú empiezas. We then have él empieza. Now, check it out here. Super important, like we mentioned. We have nosotros empezamos. There is no stem change. They did, of course, take the regular ending that we needed. And same thing for the vosotros. We have empezáis, no stem change, right? So I'm going to write over here, no stem change. Never, ever, ever. But here we go. We see the ellos form and we hop right back to it. So ellos empiezan. Muy buen trabajo, chicos. Let's see another one. This time we have pensar, which is to think, very important verb. And of course, the only E that exists here is here in the middle. And it does the stem change again up to IE. So it becomes yo pienso, tú piensas, ella piensa. And here we have nosotros pensamos, no stem change, conjugates just like normal. Same thing for vosotros, for pensáis. And we go back to that stem change for ellos piensan. And there we have it. Are you getting the hang of it? Let's take a look at an O to UE now. The first verb that we're going to look at is encontrar, which is to find. So here we have the O in the middle that's emboldened, and it goes to the UE in the middle of the verb. So we should see yo encuentro, tú encuentras, usted encuentra. What happens over here? That's right, nothing. We have nosotros encontramos, no stem change, friends. Vosotros encontráis, and then we have ustedes encuentran. encuentran. Qué fácil. Now, I really genuinely wish that I knew of a way to share with you guys to know which verbs are stem changers and which ones are not. But unfortunately, it just happens to be the fact that the more you use it, the more you'll memorize it, or the faster you will. It's honestly just a game of memory at this point. But we have a really, really good list to start out with. And so as long as you guys get familiar with those, I think you'll have no problem working with these verbs in the future. You have got this. All right, so now we come across one that's a little weird. It's a U to UE. I know I said for AR verbs, it's only E to IE and O to UE, but this verb jugar is the only verb that exists for the AR verbs, or really any, that is considered a U to UE. So we just kind of loop it in there, right? But here we have it. We have jugar, which is to play, or to play a sport specifically. To play an instrument is something different. That is tocar. So jugar is to play or to play a sport. So we see this U here in the middle, and it becomes the UE. Still keeping those endings like we know. So we have yo juego, tú juegas, él juega. And of course, no stem change. So nosotros jugamos, vosotros jugáis, and we see that back again with juegan for ellos. And again, we just kind of brought this to our attention a moment ago. The stem change for jugar is a technical U to UE. All right, so that finishes up AR verbs. Super simple. All right, this time around, we're going to be looking at ER verbs, my friends. And so, irregular verbs that end in ER have two possible stem changes as well. And guess what? They're identical. They are either E to IE once again, or they are considered the O to UE. And our endings are as follows. The O, es, hemos, es, and en. Just like we saw with our AR verbs, they did not change whatsoever. So you are already one foot in the door, my friends. All right, so this first verb is an E to IE verb, and this is querer. Say that with me, querer. That is to want. Oh gosh, such a frequent verb. I'm so excited that we're finally getting to this one. Finally, we can talk about things that we want, right? So here we have it. The querer changes to yo quiero. Yo quiero. For tú, it becomes tú quieres. Ella quiere. Nosotros, again, doesn't matter what kind of verb, no stem change. Nosotros queremos, vosotros queréis. We see the stem change again for ellas quieren. Super buen trabajo, amigos. Muy bien. All right, so this is another E to IE verb, and it is tener, which is to have. However, super important note here that I want you to put somewhere on your paper or your notes. Tener is considered an extra irregular verb. All right, that is my unofficial title for these types of verbs. And the reason why we call it extra irregular is because tener also has an irregular yo form, right? In that it's not just a stem change, but it's altogether a little funky, right? So the yo form for tener is tengo. Okay, we've already kind of worked with this a little bit, but now we're going to really get some in-depth practice with it. So we have a subgroup of verbs that are extra irregulars, and what I mean by extra irregulars are they are also, or rather they have, an extra irregularity also in the yo form. So, bueno, here we go. So we have yo tengo, but then we just do our normal irregular flow here that E is going to change to IE for tú. We should see tienes. We have usted, tiene. We have nosotros. Here we go, no stem change, right? Tenemos, vosotros tenéis. And we've concluded with ustedes tienen. Muy buen trabajo. All right, so we go now to an O to UE verb for an ER verb, and this is poder. Poder is to be able, can, may, and it is an O to UE. So here we see in our yo form, we have yo puedo, we have tú puedes, we have él puede, muy bien, we have nosotros podemos, vosotros podéis, and we go right back down to ellos pueden for our last. All right, hopefully this is getting easier as we come along. Another O to UE, here we have volver. Volver is to return, like to return somewhere, to return someplace. So for the yo form, we see yo vuelvo, we have tú vuelves, ella vuelve, nosotros volvemos, vosotros volvéis, and we go back to ellos vuelven. Right, there we have it. All right, so we go into a bit of a unique shift now. We're still working with irregular verbs. However, we are now only looking at a few verbs that are irregular only in the yo form. All right, so this means that the rest of our conjugations work just like we normally would with any regular verb, but that yo form has an exception. So these are not extra irregulars, right? Remember, extra irregulars have a unique yo form as well as irregular conjugations for the rest. These verbs are only irregular in our yo form. So here we have it. We have yo hago. And this is for the verb hacer, which is to do or to make. So yo hago, right? And then we see the rest of them conjugate like normal, like we said. So we have tú haces, usted hace, nosotros hacemos, vosotros hacéis, y ustedes hacen, right? There we go. Do you notice a little similarity between the yo form for hacer and the yo form for tener? If you did, keep that in mind. We're going to come back to it in just a minute. See if you can find any others that are like that too. We're now going to look at poner, which is to put. And the yo form is yo pongo, or I put. If you put, it becomes tú pones, he puts, él pone. We put, nosotros ponemos, vosotros ponéis, you all put in Spain, y ellos ponen, they put. Buen trabajo, amigos. So at this point, were you able to catch the similarity? Notice that if I want to say I have, my verb looks like yo tengo. To say I do, I have yo hago. To say I put, I have yo pongo, right? So a really easy thing for us and lucky trick that we have are that these extra irregulars oftentimes end with this little G-O ending. So just another hint or trick to kind of help us keep them in line. Not all of them will work this way, but we do get lucky with a nice little handful. All right, let's continue, my friends. Now we're going to look at saber. Bueno. All right, so we're still looking at the ones that are irregular in the yo form, and this time we're coming across saber, which is to know a fact or to know how to do something. This is not to know someone. That's a different verb that we'll get into another time. But this is to know a fact or to know how to do something. So to say, oh, I know, it becomes yo sé. And the rest of them, friends, conjugate like normal. So you know, tú sabes, ella sabe, she knows, nosotros sabemos, we know, vosotros sabéis, y'all know, y ellas saben, or they know. Muy bien. Now we're going to take a look at ver, which is to see. Do you remember what the other verb that is to see or to watch? Bueno, that is mirar, and that's one of our regular verbs. We have the irregular form of ver, which means essentially the same thing. Bueno, in my yo form, I have yo veo, and we go into normal, so you see becomes tú ves. You see formally, usted ve. We see, nosotros vemos, y'all see in Spain, vosotros ves, and then you all see everywhere else, ustedes ven. All right, so super buen trabajo, amigos. Like I said, just a lot of charts and a lot of memorization, but really once you start to get those patterns down, it's not that difficult to keep straight. So let's look at a couple of sentence formation things here. So we've learned to form sentences and questions with one verb, right? So for example, we see ella tiene. Remember what that means? It comes from the verb tener, which is to have. So ella tiene un gato, or she has a cat, right? And then you could ask the question, ¿tiene ella un gato? Does she have a cat? We know that we swap the subject and the verb when we do a question, making the verb come first. This is all working with one verb, but what if we want to work with two verbs? We get really lucky because the word order in English and Spanish is basically the same. So this allows us to put two verbs together in a similar sequence. Note, importantly, that the word no comes directly before the first verb when making the sentence negative, okay? So it tells us that when using two or more verbs together, the first will be conjugated and the following will remain in the infinitive. Following will remain in the infinitive. So let's take a look at what that might look like here. All right, my first sentence, yo quiero cantar, right? Or I want, here I have my verb to want, and that is conjugated to match yo. But if you notice in English, I even say to sing. And there I have it. I'm going to keep it in my infinitive form. I want to sing. I cannot conjugate this second verb to match yo, because if I did, if let's say, for example, I wrote yo quiero, I conjugate to want for me, myself, and then let's say I accidentally conjugated cantar for yo as well, which would be canto. Well, if I did that, read it out to yourself and see if that makes sense, because we know this ending belongs to yo, and this is what we would have. I want, then canto is I sing. That just does not work. To say I want to sing, we have got to keep the infinitive form here. All right? Bueno. Let's look at another example. To say they do not want to read a book, remember that the word no is coming directly before the first verb. So ellos no, check it out, quieren, my ending here is matching my subject, ellos. Ellos no quieren. And then I plug in what they don't want to do, which is leer. Ellos no quieren leer un libro. So these two verbs side by side, first is conjugated, second left in the infinitive. Bueno. Same thing's happening for our third sentence. Podemos bailar bien, right? Or my hemos ending that I see here, I know belongs to we, right? So we can, and here we have dance well. Podemos bailar bien. We can dance well. Finally, our last sentence. I want to know, can you find the party? Right? I have puedes. Now, the reason why I have my subject in parentheses here is because remember, that's optional. That es ending only belongs to tú. So you would only include tú if you really wanted to clarify that I'm speaking directly to you. But not wrong either way. But this is where it would go if we did include it. Puedes tú encontrar la fiesta? Can you find the party? And there we have it. So that is a wrap today, my friends. You all did wonderfully well with this. If you need anything, you know where I am. Feel free to pause, rewind, or rewatch the video at any time. Take a look at those charts. Get familiar with them. You have got this in the bag, my friends. Have a wonderful day y nos hablamos pronto. Adiós.